Some relationship deal breakers that people often ignore and it later becomes a problem in the relationship. So if you're watching me in this video and you are yet to be married, don't go anywhere till you see what I have to say in this video. And if you're married already, you need to hear me out because you may start early to adjust some things before it eats you up in your relationship. Relationship is a blessing and it can only bless you when you work things out properly. That's why you see divorces today, because some relationships are not working and some divorces are better than some relationship that ends up taking people's destinies, life, and complicating people's life. So, what are the 5 relationship deal breakers you must pay attention to and never neglect in your relationship? Number 1 is lack of emotional accountability. When you see someone who is not always accountable over what they have done or keeps shifting blades, you've got to run if you are yet to hook up with that person. I don't believe in changing people. I believe that people should get better and agree that they are working on themselves before you get hooked up with them or finally marries them, because you are not a rehabilitation center. You could get into what you are trying to fix and it finally doesn't work out the way you want. A relationship is very critical. It's a place where your sacrifice of love is required. So before you get it, ensure that you've got the right person there. So is the person emotionally accountable? Do they take responsibility of their mistakes, of their failures, and they really want to get better about it? If no is the answer, then that is a deal breaker that you should never ignore. So number 2 is poor conflict resolution. If you are in a relationship and there is nothing like, a good space where you actually talk about what you don't like and what has really failed in the relationship. You don't have a room where you discuss that. Maybe your partner will always shut you up, shout you down, and doesn't want to talk about it, or ends up insulting you, or insulting you. That is a poor conflict resolution. So you must understand that conflict will always come in a relationship until you begin to master yourself. That doesn't mean that every relationship is filled with conflict, but to the level you learn yourself and really compatible, that is going to affect the kind of conflict, or many times you are having conflict in the relationship. How does he or she react when you have conflict? And how do you yourself react when you have conflict? Do you give room for discussion? Is there anything like talk? And I'm going to talk because it's important that you hear yourselves out. Sometimes at the point of hearing yourselves out, you begin to find out that you made some mistakes and you never saw it. And it's important that such spaces are given in relationships. So when your partner is not ready to discuss with you on what happened and they don't want to talk about it, or maybe when you have someone who is abusive when there is conflict, is a red flag and is a deal breaker you wouldn't want to have experience with. The next one is financial irresponsibility. If your partner is always spending excessively, doesn't have plan for money, doesn't have plan for wealth, very lazy at work, doesn't go to work, doesn't want to work, and spends carelessly, and is always in debt, and is not organized with the little they have, they achieve nothing with that, that is a relationship deal breaker. You may not be able to manage on the long run. So if you are here to marry this person, you need to talk about this and see how you're going to fix it. If you need a therapy, you need to meet a therapist, and the person has to really sit under a therapy. I believe people can be transformed, but you don't have to push them to. You don't have to put the pressure on them. They choose to, and they decide when to really start working towards that. So watch how responsible they are with their finances, their responsibility with their finances, and accountability. Number 4 is uncontrolled anger. This is another deal breaker you cannot be able to manage in a relationship that is meant to be a marriage. Alright, if your partner has uncontrolled anger, you may never be able to manage that. Like outbursts of anger, not being able to manage emotions, and some can even go to the extent of being abusive, using some stuff and wanting to hit this person because the anger is uncontrolled. I believe this is a sickness, is emotional sickness, and really requires some therapy to get over that kind of relationship. So figure out how they manage anger and be sure that they manage it the right way. Else, it may be a relationship deal breaker that you don't have to deal with. The 5th one is jealousy mistaken as love. So many persons pretend to love you, and of course, they have uncontrolled, jealousy over you, and they just want to control your life. When you meet people like that, that is a relationship deal breaker you shouldn't joke with. Jealousy can never be mistaken as love, because love will give you room to be yourself, to express yourself before they bring the correction. But of course, some people are so controlling, they don't want you to have a life. You can't do anything outside of them. That is not love. That is very dangerous. And come on, you can't deal with that. Now, let's talk about spiritual compatibility. Come on, you can't live with someone who doesn't have the same faith with you, because faith is something that is very strong. It controls the being of a person. Faith is what you believe in, and it is very hard to talk someone else out of their faith. People behave many times based on what their faith tells them. People react based on their faith. They build their life from their faith. So you could be dealing with the chemistry of love, of emotions, thinking that you're going to stay with this person, neglecting their faith, their religion, what they believe in. But when you get into that relationship and stay for long, when all the chemistry is gone and the emotions are gone, you will still come back to the very thing that powers their life, which is their religion, their faith, and what they believe in. So you shouldn't try to manage the very fact that this person is not in the same faith with you. So the Bible says for Christians, it says, do not be equally yoked with unbelievers, because we already know that things can't work out, because you're coming from a different kingdom, I'm coming from a different kingdom. We have different rules that guide us. And of course, when we are together, we are going to be clashing. The enemy will always come through that person who is not a Christian, and God will always come through the person who is a Christian. And of course, the light and darkness have nothing in common. And anybody who is not a Christian is automatically belonging to the kingdom of darkness. We have two kingdoms, not more than two, of course. So that's very important. It's a relationship deal breaker you may never want to deal with. Find out their faith and be sure you are on the right track. And if you're already married and the person is not in the same faith with you, you've got to talk about that, and you've got to try to win the person. The Bible talks about a woman positioning herself the right way so that she can win the husband, because the husband being in the right faith or the same faith with her is so important. And I believe it is the same way for men. If your wife is not in the same faith with you and you really want to bring her in, you need to position yourself. Faith is not imposed, it's a choice. It's from the core of your being. It is actually what makes you who you are, what we believe in. And if you cannot work towards changing your partner's faith, you may never be able to work out a successful relationship with them, because their life is dependent on their faith and religion. So the number 8 relationship deal breakers that people often overlook is when you find someone who has a victim mentality. There are so many persons that believe that everybody is the problem except them. They hardly turn the mirror to themselves. They just believe that the problem must be from you. They believe that they can never be wrong. Run away from someone who can never be wrong, who tells you that I can't be wrong, I can never be wrong, the fault will never be or come from me. This is a relationship deal breaker, and people overlook that a lot. No matter how smart, intelligent, or right you think you are, it cannot always be your partner or the other person, provided you have a close relationship. There are room for mistakes. You can actually make mistakes sometimes. Maybe the way you spoke, the way you reacted, the way you did this, or some steps you took. You may not see it, but of course, it could be you at any point. So it's a relationship deal breaker you must run away from. Okay. Don't just buy into someone's smartness and intelligence just because you want the way, you love the way they just excuse themselves and run away from trouble whenever trouble shows up. It's going to come back to you. Nobody is all that perfect and all that right every time. There will always be times where you have missed it. And if you find out that this person has a victim mentality, they will always push blame to you. And people who always do that, they always believe that they are the problem, but they want to push the blame to you. They don't want to believe that they are wrong because they already know that they are wrong. So when you want to be in a relationship with someone, know that this is a deal breaker and you get ready to deal with this. This can also be a psychological problem, and you may need to seek someone who would help to talk to the person, or a therapy. And of course, it can go a long way to sort out issues before you finally decide on what to do in that relationship. So finally, number 9 relationship deal breakers that people often overlook is lack of peace. What are you going to do with someone who doesn't have peace? How are you going to manage that relationship? Because it's going to be very complicated. Without peace, there can't be a relationship. There can't be a healthy home. Jesus is the Prince of Peace, because that is the only way he rules his people. Okay, you can't have a healthy relationship, healthy children, healthy marriage, healthy everything, even a healthy business, when there is chaos, always having confusion, exhaustion. Someone can actually be without peace. It's important to find out if your partner has peace. Everybody don't have peace. Some people don't have peace. And if you walk into a relationship with someone who is always angry over themselves, obsessed with themselves, like they're always in confusion, complaining every single time, like this is more of their experience at the times when they actually smile or laugh. You know, some people call them narcissists. I believe, of course, that people who are narcissists, but of course, this is a spiritual problem. I believe this is not normal to be a narcissist. Is a demonic problem. That is what I believe, because you know, if you are born again and you have Christ in you, you should have peace. And of course, I still understand that the enemy goes ahead of people to mess their life up. Some people have a childhood problem, the way they grew up, their life was messed up, their emotions were messed up, their character was messed up, so their expectations were equally messed up. So they end up, you know, becoming that door that the enemy keeps using against them themselves before using against other people. So you have to find out if the person you are relating with lacks peace and needs peace. The first thing you do is to introduce Jesus to the person. And if the person has been in church for a long time, then you need to teach the person on how to develop the fruit of peace, because peace is in God. And if God is in her or in him, definitely God is going to work out peace. But of course, it's something that she or he needs to start praying about and dedicating themselves and interceding over it, and let God work out peace in them. So before you marry, or you're already married and you are dealing with someone who lacks peace, you need to work towards, you know, doing away with these relationship deal breakers. Like I mentioned, 9 relationship deal breakers that people often overlook, and it later becomes a problem in the relationship. You should never neglect these things. Learn today to attend to these things. Either you work them out before you go into your marriage relationship, or you already start noticing them, begin to pray about them, begin to read books, and begin to meet some counselors, some therapists that would need to help you, would have to help you. Because if you need a healthy, wholesome relationship, marriage relationship, you are going to do something about fixing these things I just mentioned. Thank you for watching. My name is Esther Christian. Please drop a comment and share this video if you like them. God bless you.